grade, welcome to Saxon Math today. We are going to take a look at lesson 103. If you could please get out your math book and open it to page 654. Have out a piece of paper and a pencil. Make sure on the right hand side of your paper you write your name in cursive, the lesson number, and the date. Today we are going to focus on three main topics. I'll walk you through them, and this will really help us on our lesson practice questions today. So our first objective today is to understand fractions equal to 1. What are they? How do we determine if it's equal to 1? Our next one is fractions equal to 1/2. And finally, we're going to work to determine if a fraction is greater than or less than 1/2. So I'd like to draw your attention to the top pictures. You do not have to write this down. If you want to, you can, but you don't, okay? So if you take a look at this top section, when you have a fraction equal to 1, the numerator and the denominator are the same. So if you look over here, this shape is divided into two sections. Remember, the number that it's divided into, that's your denominator, that's 2. The number that are colored in are 2. So we have 2/2, which is equal to 1. The reason why we say it's equal to 1 is because this one complete shape is colored in. It's 1. Same concept here. It's divided into 4 sections. 4 are colored in, so it's 4/4. That's also equal to 1. So if you had a fraction that said 7/7, 6/6, 8/8, they're all equal to 1. That means they're divided in these parts and every single thing is colored in. So it's equal to 1 complete shape. Okay? So fractions equal to 1 have the same numerator and the same denominator. Remember, numerator's at the top, denominator is the number at the bottom of the fraction. Okay, so I think we're good with our first concept. Let's take a look at our second one. So now we have some shapes. And we look at this one, it's divided into 4 sections, which is our denominator, and 2 sections are colored in, and that's our numerator. So we would say 2/4 of this shape are colored in. Now, in order to determine if a shape is equal to 1/2, the numerator needs to be half of the denominator. So 2 is half of 4. That would be equal to 1/2. Then we'll take a look at another one. This is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sections, right? 8 sections, 4 are colored in. So we would say since 4 is half of 8, this is equal to 1/2. So again, looking at the shapes, looking at your fractions, if the top number, the numerator, is half of the denominator, it equals 1/2. See how 4 is half of 8, 1/2. 2 is half of 4, 1/2. So remember, numbers are the same, they're equal to 1. The numerator is half of the denominator, it's equal to 1/2. So now, we're moving on to our third concept today. We need to determine if a fraction is greater than or less than 1/2. So we look over here. This shape is divided into 6 sections. 2 of them are colored in. Now, if you look at this, you can say, well, that looks like less than half of that's colored in. That's fine, but you might not have a picture in front of you. So I'm going to show you a way for you to know without even having to have a picture. You look at 2/6, and you say to yourself, you look at the denominator. What is half of the denominator? Half of 6 is 3. So then you look at your numerator. Is 2 less than 3 or greater than 3? 2 is less than 3, so this is less than 1/2. And by looking at the picture, you know that. So you divide the denominator in half, and then you see, is the numerator less than or greater than? If it's less than, then it's less than 1/2. So let's go to the next one. This is divided into 8 sections. 3 are colored in, so your denominator is 8, your numerator is 3. You take a look. What is half of 8? Half of 8 is 4. So is 3 less than 4 or greater than 4? 3 is less than 4. So your answer would be less than 1/2. So then we go here. This is divided into eighths, which is your denominator. 5 are colored in, so it'd be 5/8. Well now, what is 8? Your denominator, divide that by 2. What's the half of 8? Half of 8 is 4. Is 5 greater than or less than 4? It is greater than, so this is greater than 1/2. Let's do one more. It's divided into 16 sections. 9 are colored in. 16 is your denominator, 9 is your numerator. Half of 16 is 8. Is 9 less than 8 or greater than 8? 9 is greater than 8. Okay. So to review, if a fraction is equal to 1, the numerator and the denominator are the same. If a fraction is equal to 1/2, the numerator is half of the denominator. If a fraction is less than 1/2, the numerator is less than half of the denominator. If a fraction is greater than 1/2, the numerator is greater than half of the denominator. All right, so now I'd like you to turn in your book to page 657, and let's go through the practice problems together now that we understand these 3 main concepts. And if I went too quickly or you're not sure what I was talking about, be sure to pause the video, go back and review what we just did, however many times you need to do that. Sometimes seeing something and hearing something more than once is truly helpful for you to understand something. And because we have the luxury of videos now, you might as well use that. So let's take a look at letter A. Write a fraction equal to 1 that has a denominator of 6. Well, remember, 6 is at the bottom. Now, if a fraction is going to equal 1, remember what we said? The top and the bottom have to be the same. So our numerator is going to be 6. That's easy. Then we look at letter B. Which of these fractions equal 1? So letter A is 1/10. Now remember, if it equals 1, it has to be the top and the bottom have to be the same. We have 1/10, not the same. 9/10, not the same. Letter C, 10/10, same. D, 11/10, not. So our answer for letter B is C. Letter C, what fraction name for 1 is shown by each picture? So what we're going to do for letter C, they say it equals 1, so you know the top and the bottom number are going to be the same. So we look at letter C. This is divided into 6 sections. Well, 6 are colored in. Then you go to letter D. How many sections is this divided into? And this is divided into 9. And 9 are colored in. Letter E. Write a fraction equal to 1/2 with a denominator of 12. So we go to E. We put our denominator on the bottom, and we need it to equal 1/2. Remember, the numerator has to be half of the denominator in order for it to equal 1/2. What is half of 12? 12 divided by 2 is 6. So our numerator will be 6. Then we go to letter F. Compare 9/20 to 1/2. Well, first things first, we have to determine, is this greater than, less than, or equal to? Well, let's do equal because equal is easy. Is 9/2 of 20? No. No, it's not. So now we need to decide. Well, our first thing that we need to do is decide what is half of the denominator. Half of the denominator is 10. So then we look over here. Is 9 less than 10 or greater than 10? And 9 is less than 10. So that would mean 9/20 is less than 1/2. So then we go to G. Round 5 3/8 to the nearest whole number. Now, you're like, well, how do I do that? Well, let's take a look. We have to determine, is 3/8 greater than a half or less than a half? Because remember, when we're trying to determine a whole number, we're going to determine, should it go to 5 or should it go to 6? And if it is greater than 5 1/2, we're going to go to 6. If it's less than 5 1/2, we have to go to 5. But we have to determine, is 3/8 less than 1/2 or greater than 1/2? So let's do that right now. So I'm going to look at 3/8, and we determine half of the denominator is 4, or half of the denominator 8 is 4. Then we say, is 3 greater than 4 or less than 4? And 3 is less than 4. So 3/8 would be less than 1/2. If 3/8 is less than 1/2, that means this is less than 5 1/2. So our number that we're going to choose, the whole number that would work, would be 5. Now that's a pretty complicated problem. So again, if it ends up being greater than a half, you go to the next number up. If the fraction is less, you stay at that number. Okay? So then you take a look at letter H, our final practice problem. Estimate the perimeter and area of a rectangle that is 6 3/4 inches long and 4 3/8 inches wide. So I'm going to draw a rectangle, and I think you should do that too. And we're going to do 6 3/4 and 4 3/8. So again, we're estimating, so we need to determine, do we do 6 or 7? So we have to do what we did over here. We got to go through each fraction. So let's do that. So let's go with this one first. So are we going to stay at 6 or go up to 7? Well, if 3/4 is greater than 1/2, we go up to 7. Okay? So now we look at 3/4. We take half of 3/4, which is 2, or actually half of 4, which is 2. Is 3 greater than 2 or less than 2? 3 is greater than 2. So 3/4 is greater than 1/2. Since 3/4 is greater than 1/2, then we need to go up. So rather than this being like 6 3/4, we're going to say this is up to 7. Now if this is 7, then we know that this is 7. Okay? So now we go to the next one. 4 3/8. Is 3/8 greater than 1/2 or less than 1/2? Well, we take half of the denominator, which is 4. Then we determine, is the numerator greater than or less than 4? It is less. So this is less than 1/2. So now we know that. So then we decide, well, do we go up to 5? No, because this is less than 1/2. So we'd stay at 4. If this is 4, then this is 4. So knowing that, 4th grade, now that we understand what numbers we're working with, after doing that, now we need to determine the perimeter first, and then we'll do area. Now remember, perimeter is when you add up everything around the outside. So we need to think to ourselves, well, let's do this. What's 7 plus 4 is 11. So what's 11? And then this is also 11. 11 plus 11 is 22. And we're looking at inches. So the perimeter, and we can do PER period, equals 22 inches. Now we need to also figure the area. Remember, area is length times width. So 7 times 4 is 28. And remember, when we're doing area, we do square inches. So 4th grade, those are our practice problems. There was a lot involved with this lesson. I hope that you listened to everything that we did in the beginning and that you understand the concepts and that you make sure that we got through all of these. I know there's multiple steps for H, but if you follow along, I'm sure you did a great job. If you have any questions, please let me know. Have fun in math.